What time is it over there?
It is 10 p.m. What about for you?
Well, 2 p.m.
2 p.m.
So,
Yeah. Hey everyone, Tom here from a Touchscreen, just doing another Around the World series. And right now we have Belgium touch footy, and that's super exciting. So why don't you guys just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about how you ended up right here and what your role is in your country for touch footy.
good. Okay, I think I'll take the lead on this one.
Okay.
So hi, I'm Tish. I'm half Belgian, half French, and I've been playing with the Women's Open team since 2014. So my first Euros was in Swansea with the national team. I've been playing touch for 18 years. So really cool that you interviewed Thailand before, because I actually learned touch in Thailand. I was born and raised over there. I went to the International School of Bangkok, and so that's where I learned to play touch. And over there, it was just as they had described, it's the girls that play touch and the boys that play rugby. So it came across as quite a shock when I arrived in Belgium and I started seeing men playing on the pitch. So yeah, so I'm a player with the Women's Open, and I also coach at my local touch club called the
Oh,
BBRC
cool.
Olympics.
Cool. Do you know any of the girls in the Thailand women's team?
So interestingly enough, we have our old sports coordinator from ISB who sent out an email to myself and one of my teammates, Cha. And I had no clue she was playing in the Women's Open team until I got that email. So really, really sick to see that she's going to be there. And so I'm going to run into her. But
Yeah,
no,
that's
aside from that,
exciting.
I think she's the only one. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
So
And you said you're half French. So does that mean,
mhm.
let's just say hypothetically, if Belgium uh, weren't sending a team in, could you qualify for France?
So yes, I could. But I think there's a lot of really complicated rules about changing nationalities and everything like that. I think one of our players probably ran into one of those issues, but technically I could. I have both nationalities, so I
You
could
just
play
have to
for
go through the
Belgium and
go through the
France.
process first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay. Awesome. All right, next.
And as the coach of the Women's Open team, stop trying to get rid of my players, okay? Like I tried hard to keep on to them. So no, she's not going to
Sorry,
France.
they've got enough anyway.
Exactly. My name's Warren. I am the coach of the Women's Open national team right now. I many different roles in touch. Well, firstly, I'm a South African-born Belgian Canadian. That has been in Brussels since about 2011, Brussels, Belgium. That's when I started touch, back when Belgium only had that year was the year we had two clubs for the first time. But I've been playing touch since then. I was 2014, the Euros that Tish started with Belgium. I was a referee for Belgium at the Euros. 2016, I was then on the Men's Open team for Belgium and the assistant coach for the women's. And since then, I've basically been the Women's Open coach. I pause every now and then for life stuff, but that was the 2016, 2018, 2020 got canceled because of COVID, but that was going to be our best team ever, I'm telling you. But that's life. And then there's been Euros, the last two Euros, and then now we've got the World Cup coming up. So there's been a big run. I've been involved as I'm currently stepping down as the director of coaching in Touch Belgium. So I've been doing that for a while. I've been a treasurer of Touch Belgium. We're a small community of people generally that get involved, and this has been the big thing for us, is to grow the sport as much as we can. And that's been my role, and making sure that the women have a coach there always to help make sure we're progressing.
Yeah, of course. So a lot of roles, basically a one-person committee.
Almost, but on the other hand, our president just stepped down. She was in the job for 8 years, so and before
Oh,
that, she was
wow.
the secretary. So it's one of those. If you have the time to give to touch in this country, we take it, and as
Oh,
long as we can.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you said about 2016, 18, those were Euro champs that you sent the Women's Open team you were the coach of.
Yes, yeah.
Did your Women's Open team play in the 2019 Malaysian World Cup in Malaysia?
So no, for us to get out of Europe to that part of the world, it's a bit hard. So for the World Cup that took place in Malaysia, we did send a men's 40s team,
Okay.
but they were the ones who could afford it. And unfortunately, that's a lot of the problems we have in Belgium is the funding issue, to travel around the world to play when we're not even recognized as a sport really in Belgium because
Oh,
there's these
okay.
old things about you need to have 500 people in a region, and we have 3 regions, and we have only like 330 people registered across the whole country. So we don't get any funding. So it's all player-driven funding and tournaments that we raise money for, etc. So
Yeah, okay. So, Tish, you mentioned that you were a coach for a local club. Do you want to sort of
Yeah.
elaborate what exactly that team is and where they play and where the team comes from? Are they sort of all in one area, or do they come from different areas?
So I think that even Warren can help me with this question because he used to play with me in this club.
Oh,
I
But
cool.
used to
we're
be the
one of
director of that
the
club.
yeah, but we're one of the oldest touch rugby clubs in Belgium. I think that we were one of the first with Kituro, if I'm correct.
It was
Um,
Celtics first, and then
yeah,
Kituro split from the Celts. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so when I arrived, I was 18. I came to Belgium for university. And so the first thing that I wanted to find was an expat club, so a club that speaks English. And it
Okay.
was, well, one of the only clubs in Belgium at the time. So I joined that one and immediately started coaching probably when I was 20. And I've stayed a coach ever since then and trying to grow the club, but it's quite difficult in Belgium because, as Warren said, we don't have a lot of players in general. And being part of an expat club, the turnover is insane. So every year we're losing players, and every year we're getting new players as well. There's no selection process throughout the year, so it's players can join whenever they wish. So that means that we get new players in the middle of the season sometimes. So it's really difficult to grow the level. So as a coach, it's extremely challenging. And we don't have coaches that just coach. All our coaches are player coaches. So we split time between coaches that coach, and when they don't coach, they get to play. So I think it's the most fair way we've been able
Yeah.
to manage it since we don't have an actual coach.
Yeah. So that's juniors and seniors, so kids, adults, or just adults,
A bit of everything.
bit of everything.
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of juniors in general in Belgium. I think that something that we're really trying to grow is the youth section. There is a club that kind of, I don't know, it takes rugby players under 18 from the Celtic Rugby Club, but they're called the Buffaloes, and so they're a separate club from ours. It's
Okay.
quite a complicated system, but ultimately most of our players are probably 20 and above.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
sometimes for a teenager, it's not the most interesting thing to be surrounded by a bunch of old croutons, and they'd rather just play with their friends,
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course. So how did you
U18.
find how did you find being a coach at 20 with players probably all older than you then, or majority, I'm guessing, would be older than you? How did you find that? I didn't start coaching until I didn't start. I got my first head coach job when I was 25, and I
Mm.
didn't probably get an assistant. I was probably 22 before and that was an assistant coach, and that was only either under 20s or juniors. So I didn't. Yeah. So how did you find that?
Yeah, it was not easy at first, mostly because probably the fact that I grew up learning touch in Bangkok with an Australian coach. So when I arrived to Belgium, I brought a new vision of touch. And that's why they asked me to coach from time to time so that I could introduce this vision. But it's true, as a young 20-year-old and a young female 20-year-old, it was a little bit hard to gain the respect of certain older men in particular.
Stubborn.
And so that was a process. And it took a while, but I feel like, and it's unfortunate, but I did manage to prove myself after a full season and then finally managed to gain the respect of these players. but it took a while before establishing myself. But that's changed wildly now, I feel like, because a lot of women are coaches now, and no one really has to go through that process anymore that I had to go through, just because we're so much more accepting as a community now. I feel like touch has changed a lot in that respect, and Belgium touch especially. We play women in the mid, we play women wherever they want. Women can coach, women can be captains. They're not really pushed aside, as we can see in a lot of clubs in general. So no, it's been a work in progress, but I feel like we've really gotten to a place now where we're quite equal between men and women. So anybody can coach.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So have you ever coached Warren?
I have.
You have?
Yeah.
There's not going to be many World Cup teams where one of the players has actually previously coached the coach before. So that's interesting. Was she a good coach, Warren?
She brought that vision, and she likes to see what she does around the pitch. So it was great for everybody to kind of learn that and not just hear it from some of us older fogies, like bring your head up, see what's in front of you. Because she always brought that. She was like, listen, I've got a gap here. I'm going. Okay. Then people are saying, oh, no, you need to run the play that we called. Why? I mean, just go through and score. It's easier. So,
yeah, that's right.
Been good to have her there.
The best play is the one that gets you the point. Doesn't matter how you get it. If the point's there, just get it. So Warren, your background, South Africa, did you play touch football? I don't know, it might have been called touch rugby over there, because I know South Africa, they're very big on with their rugby. Did you have a background in touch before you started living in Belgium?
To be honest, I didn't know about touch even existed until I got to Belgium. I had never even heard of it. Growing up in South Africa, it was rugby. I mean, we played one touch at lunch or whatever, right? So it's all about get that little step in, and gym class was the same sort of thing, right? But that's as close as we got to rugby, to touch. That's
a very New Zealand style of training, the 1 and 2 touch. And I think it's really good, actually. It probably needs to be incorporated in Australia, because that's why New Zealand is such an interesting team to watch, because they're just so good with just eyes up and improvisation.
The dynamic stuff, right? That little step, looking at, oh, here's a half gap. Okay, let's take the touch in that half gap and break through, right? It's isolating those things. And the ball handling improves because you're always ready for the ball back, right? And I think that's something that all teams can kind of benefit from. We try to bring it into our trainings every now and then, just so that we get that flexibility in it. I know the clubs are doing it some of the time, so that's good too.
Yeah, and what I say, one of the best things that probably unnoticed with 1 touch or 2 touch is your work off the ball. Because you've always got to be ready. Every person has to be prepared. So you're constantly moving. Your feet are always moving. So, and that's something that probably gets a bit overlooked. You actually don't see it in Australia to a high level. A player may miss out on a high level rep team because of their work off the ball is not good enough. And they're only ready for the structure. They're not ready for that. Like a defender might slip over. Okay, no more structure.
Oh, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, this is something that we need to have. I think it's still an issue we have in Belgium because, as Tish has alluded to, we're mostly adults that start to play. And I'd say we're probably about 25% of the people that play in Belgium came from maybe a rugby background and then retired. The rest of them, this may have been the first sport they've ever played. Or they're starting in their mid-20s. Some people starting in the 30s because they're kind of more old across the teams. So this whole dynamic aspect and heads up stuff it's a bit of a struggle. They don't necessarily have all the basics there. We have to train them up on how to pass and how to do a proper pop and a pass, etc. and go. So I think it brings a lot of struggles across all our teams. But we take the ones that we can get to do those things. We bring them into like a national training squad that we keep running year round, even when we don't have a championship going, so that we have an opportunity for those players to improve somewhere, and then they can take that hopefully back to the clubs individually and kind of help them progress through that institutional kind of training opportunities. So
yeah, cool. Is rugby a whole year round sport in Belgium? I'm guessing it's rugby is quite a popular sport in Belgium as well.
We wish. That's the thing.
What would be the most popular sport for both men and women in Belgium?
Top 2 sports are soccer, then field hockey, and then after that is cycling. Tish,
cycling.
You got it right there.
Yeah,
that's very popular in Australia, and it's and it's not. It's it's a bit of a problem actually. The cyclists getting in the way. It's a bit of a running joke in this country about cyclists just their battle with drivers. But soccer and field hockey, are they just in the winter, or is soccer a winter and field hockey is more summer? How is that work? Because in Australia,
they tend to run almost similar time frames. So they're like September through like May generally, because we're not too bad with the winter here and like snow. We get a couple times a year that there's snow, 2-3 times. The rest of the time we have this lovely rain that comes down, and then we have about 3 days when the sun comes out. But at least that's how it feels sometimes when you're right. So we do keep doing with the outdoor sports throughout kind of the winter season. And then, of course, May, June, schools end and people tend to do the holidays, and especially August, things really shut down. People are traveling away. So there's not as many over summer sports really. So it's more the September through to May. Touch is one of the only sports that goes all year round that I know of in Belgium, because we continue having our championships all the way into July generally. And we haven't, a lot of times there's a Euros or something in August. So we kind of keep the ball rolling all the time.
Something I probably forgot to ask was actually how cold it gets. How cold does it get in winter in Belgium? Because we're coming up to winter in Australia now. But a cold day would be 15 degrees Celsius. Would be a very cold day where I'm from.
That's nothing.
I was talking to, my last interview was with Sweden, and they were talking about negative 23 Celsius.
Oh, okay, yeah. It doesn't get that bad, but I do remember certain trainings in the snow. We had one of our national trainings in very, very thick snow at some point.
We are so soft. We've always had a heat policy, and I think it's around about your 36, 37 degrees is when we start having to change things like more breaks and things like that. But we recently introduced a cold weather policy, and that is anything below 8 degrees Celsius, the tournament can actually be cancelled or stopped because it's too cold. And I'm sure until recently when I've been sort of finding out about the international scene of touch, that's not that cold.
No.
You guys should
send a team. Trainings.
Send on a team over for one of our St. Nicholas tournaments or something like that. I remember just going to a training once with 5 layers on and puffer jackets, and you can barely throw the ball because you're a Michelin man. And I remember just thinking, imagine Australians wearing all this, I want to see how they would play with 5 layers and a huge puffer coat. And
we wear thermos, in the winter comp. I play in the winter. We have a Monday night comp, and everyone's wearing the thermos. They look like wetsuits. That's just to keep them warm. And beanies. Yeah. Everyone loves beanies. And but yeah, it's probably not. If you ever experienced it, it's probably not that cold for you. Because it probably be.
I mean, our first 4 trainings with the national teams this year, 2 out of those first 4 were while it was snowing, and I think every single one of them we were temperatures between -5 and 1 degrees basically for those first 4 to get ready for this World Cup. So
I've been to one tournament where it snowed, but it was the snow that hit you and melted straight away. So it was that needly snow. But that was windy and slippery. I just still remember because it was so frosty on the ground that it was a junior tournament and the kids just kept slipping over. It was the funniest thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so where can we go next? We'll circle back to the World Cup. So how many teams is Belgium sending to this World Cup?
So I'll take this one then. So we have the women's open team that's going. We have a men's 30s team that is going, and we have a mixed open team that is going. So this is we're 3 to this one. So we basically in 2011 we sent 1 mixed team. In 2019 there was a men's 40s, and now we're up to 3 teams for this World Cup. So
sorry, I'm just having a look at the mixed open draw. I've got the draws up because I'm with mixed open as well, coaching China, and I'm just checking. No, China does not play. Yes, I ended up being a part of the China mixed open team as their coach.
Oh, wow.
Completely out of the YouTube channel.
Oh.
Um, mid last year, I just woke up and I had an email from China Touch Football and asked me if I would like to coach their mixed open team. And
Wow.
yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
And
amazing. How does that
so
happen then? Because from abroad.
so there's three. They did three camps. So I've been over
Mm.
twice, and then I go over again in 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks, and that'll be the last weekend camp, and then I'll
Oh,
play
okay.
play the World Cup.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah.
so that's where my sort of interest started with all the international and like how it, because when I went over to China, it was just so different. Like we played a tournament in Hong Kong on synthetic grass, and I'd never done that before, and everyone else around me is like, what do you mean you haven't done synthetic grass? That's all we have. It's like, okay.
That's pretty much the situation in Belgium. I'd say 80% of the pitches we play on are synthetic, and
Well,
trying to find grass so people get used to diving, it's it's always my battle as a coach. Is like, nope, we need to find grass, and then we find grass that's being used by the rugby, so it's actually mud, and
oh
it's easier to slide, I guess, but it's not the same feeling. So yeah, it's
yes,
a battle.
yeah. So I guess we should probably not take it for granted actually how lucky we are in Australia. Um, to actually have access to a lot of fields. Anyway, we
Yeah.
won't, I won't talk about that too much. I don't want to rub it in. So women's open. How does your training go? So we go weekend and camps. How does the women's open in Belgium train?
I'll let Warren take this
Uh, it, you can take this dish. You're there for a lot of them as well. So
one.
Well, you would hope so.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think that we have a lot of luck in Belgium that we're quite a small country, so we can host a lot of training camps or training days. Most of the time, it's just a full Sunday, pretty much from what 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. or something like that, with a lunch break. So it does sound quite long, but it helps us, to get through a lot of stuff. And we most of the time we can get all the girls there. And I think the furthest that we've ever driven or that anybody would ever have to drive is probably an hour and a half. And so every time we're complaining about that, we just have to think about the French or any other country that have to take the car
Australia.
for maybe 6 hours, yeah, to just to meet up with their teams.
Oh,
Whereas for us,
China.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah,
But
so us,
that
it's
is, I guess,
more
one benefit that
accessible.
you would have.
Yeah, and for example, at the Celtics, I think that we have what 8 girls from the Women's Open who play at the Celts. So at my club, so we're training with each other a lot, which is
It'd be
really,
good for
really
probably good for the team culture as well.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We've really grown together ever since I think the 2022 Euros. The group really started forming, and then 2023 we all started getting a little bit closer, and now it's more or less the same girls that have played in 2023, so we know each other very, very well, and we see each other quite a lot. I think it's just this month of May where we don't have trainings, but that's going to pick up again in June. But so we occasionally have camp weekends as well, and that's the full weekend where we'd go to a sports complex and we'd sleep over and we do team
Oh,
building
cool.
trainings on both days. But everything's so accessible and uh, yeah, so quite easy to
Yeah, that's
organize.
good.
I mean, we're even trying to organize some midweek trainings. When clubs have a 2-hour
Oh,
training slot, we're trying to take advantage of that in the last couple of months as we get to the World Cup. About okay, Wednesday, who can make a training, and we'll get as many girls as we can get together to be there at one of the clubs, and then we'll just have our own training and play some games against the club, so there's some opposition that's different for us to come up against. So trying to use that closeness to help out with that.
Mm.
yeah, that's lucky. Well, actually, Australia's not too bad with the travel. So we really have 90% of our players probably come from either the Sydney area or the Brisbane area. So training's either in Sydney or Brisbane. It's just one of them two. And let's say there was a team of 15 players. The amount of spending on travel to get to training all goes into one pool, and then it's just divided amongst the 15 players. So you might not have to travel at all, but you've still got to chip in and help the people that do have to travel out. I think that's the system they use for the youth Australian teams, and I can't see why it wouldn't change for the senior one. So I actually don't mind that system. It does make it fair for everyone. So what I'm looking at now is the Women's Open draw. Have you seen it? Have you guys seen it? Oh, it's not the draw, it's the pool. Sorry. You're in Pool A. A lot of games. You have 10 games by the looks of it, 10 round games. Is there any team that you're really excited to play against?
I mean, I think the obvious one is Australia, and
Everyone says Australia.
That's pretty much on everyone's bucket list at this point. We're all saying.
What I can say is it's you're not going, just because it's in England, it's not going to be a half strength Australian side. What Australian Touch has done is for their 3 Opens divisions, Australian Touch are actually covering all the costs because they wanted to field their full strength team. So when we saw the teams listed, we couldn't really think of a stronger team. So you're not going to miss out on playing anyone unless obviously they're injured. So yeah, there's not going to be any big names that aren't going to be there, which I think is really good.
No, that's really cool. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that one, even though, it kind of really scares us too. I think we'll learn a lot from it, especially. And I think that's one of the biggest goals for this World Cup, is to be able to bring back as much knowledge as possible. I mean, that's where most of our players grow and improve the most, right? It's at these
absolutely
high-level tournaments.
Absolutely. So, and don't be afraid to ask, like, if you want to ask questions or stuff. Like, I know a few of the Australian Women's Open players, and they're really nice. Like, they'll be more than happy to like share knowledge. Like Australia, touch footy is really good with that sort of stuff. Coaches will share knowledge, and so will players. Like I think I said in one of the other interviews, I don't know if this is the Thailand one, but we had a national tournament, and Western Australia is a region, and they were playing against the region that I'm from, Hunter Western, which won the Men's Open division. They won it this year, and Western Australia is sort of a developing region. Hunter Western scored a try, and they stopped after the try was given. Instead of going back for the tap off, they actually went through how they scored to the other team and showed them how to stop it. So they actually gave them a little bit of feedback during the game.
Cool. Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've never seen it before, and now that I've seen it once, I'm seeing it a little bit more. So it's really cool. It's really just shows.
Hopefully, they have that in mind when they come up against us. We wouldn't mind that a little bit.
Yeah, it's true. Let's just take 2 minutes to go over what just happened.
I'm sure they'd be probably wouldn't want to offend anyone. They probably would answer anything mid-game. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Any other teams? Like I'm looking at the only other team I've seen is Singapore. They came over to Australia in December and played in our state championships. And I also saw them at a Hong Kong International in March. I think it was March. They actually played in the mixed open division. So my Chinese team, we played against them, and they're pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, no. We saw some of the videos of what was the tournament in Australia again, where they went to play? I think England Women's Open also sent a team to that one.
Yeah, so that was a New South Wales state champs.
Yeah, that one. But no, they looked incredible as well. So definitely gonna look out for that game.
Sorry, I tell a like Cook Islands, that's based in Sydney as well. So we've got a club there's a big family that I don't know if they run the club or they're just heavily involved in the club, called Northern Beaches, and they're all, I think they've got like heritage of Cook Islands, so they're forming the bulk of the Cook Islands team. So that is basically going to be an Australian team if they were 18 if they were 18 years old. So it'll be a really young side that probably have the potential to play for Australia. So that'll be interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm also looking forward to Japan, for example. I've seen some of them play over the Trans-Tas and stuff like that. So I think that'll be cool.
They played in our national tournament in March at the start of them, and they surprised everyone. There was one player that everyone was talking about, and I can't remember a name, but yeah, there was just I didn't get to see them because I was so busy. But they came and surprised everyone, and they actually made the semifinals.
They look extremely quick.
Oh yeah, I can imagine they'd be light on their feet, the Japanese team.
Yeah.
And then
And
me
I think,
personally, I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to play Canada as well because, of course, I lived
Oh,
for
of course.
19 years in Canada. So, and this is the first time they're going to a World Cup that I'm aware of as well. So it'll be good to see what
Okay.
they bring. Because they were, I mean, there was no real touch rugby when I was there. I've been kind of following some Canadian teams since I left. Like they're Toronto has a team, Quebec, Montreal has a team. So they've got some small clubs, but who knows? Maybe they're going to come and surprise people at the World Cup as well. So we'll see.
Yeah. Do they have any sort of sport with that shaped ball? Do they have rugby? I know it's very like ice
Yeah, we do.
hockey's a big thing in Canada.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, well, if you look at the HSBC sevens, Canada is part of that in the men's and women's. So there is rugby. It's played mostly in the west of the country, but in Toronto, there's also quite a few rugby clubs there as well. And I mean, we played it in high school. So it's one of the things that's kind of a difference between what I've had growing up in Canada and in Belgium. At least rugby was part of high school, so people knew what the sport was. They knew what the ball was. They learned to pass.
Yep.
Belgium, we're having trouble getting into that youth thing. So all the youth stuff we're having to build is having to be after school, weekends, all that extra. And it's a big focus of Touch Belgium to get that because without that, you don't end up having open teams, right? You end up having 40-year-olds playing in the open division, and that's doesn't get you anywhere fast. So
Yeah. So in Australia, that we actually have you can work as a casual game development officer. So it's very popular for like university students that might have a day or two free. They get an hourly rate to go and work in a school and do clinics. So we have touch football clinics in our school
interesting.
by qualified coaches. They might not have ever coached a rep team before, but they've got to do a certificate of like their coaching accreditation. And yeah, they go in schools and they just have a class for an hour, run some touch footy drills. Next class comes, they could be there for the whole day. And touch football is actually incorporated into our school, like our primary school curriculum. So sport and touch football is one of the
Yeah.
sports that we tick off. So you can actually get selected in a sporting school in high school for touch football.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's not as popular like rugby or rugby league. We have the rugby league is probably the more popular one, but all our rugby league kids play that in the winter and touch in the summer.
Yeah, we're basically union based in Belgium for any of the clubs that are there. There's two divisions basically that go with this: the Flanders division and then the Walloon division. And yeah, there's some rugby, but again, rugby is such a small sport that it's not really a school related thing. So you have to have parents basically that are rugby players are keen on it and get their kids involved in one of the rugby schools, which is outside of school time on the weekends generally, so that they can then we have players that similarly parents have had kids, and we're kind of growing the community through generational getting people back into touch, right?
Yeah.
And then what we can, but the idea of having students and stuff do the courses at schools and getting paid to do it, that's something we should probably look at doing, because when we've tried to run some things at schools every now and then, the international school, it's always been the problem of we're all 30, 40, taking a day off of work isn't always feasible, so we don't really get the people there. But we should probably look at doing that, getting some younger folk involved in that
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun as well. I think I did it a couple of times where I had a couple of days off, and yeah, it was really good. So touch footy in Belgium. So we talked about the women's open side at the World Cup and the team that went to the Euros. If I moved to Brussels tomorrow and I wanted to play touch footy, how does that work? Like, how does the social scene work?
So we basically have a club that you need to find in the local area, and Brussels itself has a number of clubs. We've got the Celtics that Tish has talked about. We have Boisfort, which is a more of a French-speaking club, but they do also speak English. I'm associated with that club. There's the Brussels Citizens as well. There's Buc as well. There's the Buffaloes for the juniors. There's La Houpe that's just around the corner. And there's Caturo, which was the second club in Belgium. So
Yeah,
all
cool.
those teams are in just the Brussels area. So it really
Awesome.
depends on where you end up in Brussels for that.
And do they offer sort of a social competition? I know speaking to other nations recently, they do it a little bit different to what we're used to. They run pickup touch. Is that
Yeah.
a thing in
So we
Belgium?
do that once a year. We've got something called the winter thaw. So it's just after the everything started to go, and we just run a day, and everybody shows up, €5, and we kind of just make teams as a pickup. But we kind of only do that once a year. The rest of the time, we have a national championships that we do run with all the clubs. So that starts in October generally, and it'll finish in June or July. And that's once every 2 months on average. Probably there's a leg. So we had like 6 or 7 legs this year, and there's a championships division. And new this year was uh, a competitive division and a championship division. So more of a social division and a competitive division. So that some of the new feeder clubs that weren't really at the level of, playing an established team can have some run out games as well. So that's organized. And then we have other social tournaments. There's two big ones that we do every year, the Spring Into Touch and Fall Into Touch. And we
Okay.
run those over 4 to 6 weeks on a Wednesday for 2 hours, half pitch, 12-minute halves kind of games. And those are with a focus on growth. Like there's actually rules in place that you're only allowed so many national players on your team, and you need to have so many players on the team that are brand new to touch that have never played before to try and encourage that growth. And that's more the social thing where like there's a barbecue, there's beers after the usual stuff,
Yeah.
and that runs for a number of weeks. But yeah, we
Yeah,
do
that's
that
cool.
twice a year. That's actually starting up pretty soon for us. End of May into June, that'll be going place. The Spring Into Touch.
So
Yeah.
do a lot of players, do they play in sort of more than one of these clubs? Do they might go this place on a Monday, this place on a Wednesday?
No,
Now,
so
generally clubs run
yeah.
2 trainings a week, right? So and then they'll have this championships that comes up. So you register with a club, and because there's no like
Oh,
weekly sort of league going on, because it's only like once a month or once every 2 months, you kind of stay with that club. However, because Europe is small, is when clubs decide to go to a tournament somewhere in Europe, if they don't have enough players, they reach out to our little community and you'll play for other teams. So like I've played for Ghent, I've played for Oudenaarde, I've played for the Citizens, I've played for the Celtics, I've played for before. I've played for pretty much most of the teams in Belgium because they want to go somewhere. People are interested. Yeah, okay, we'll join up and we'll go and play in France or in Germany or in the UK or wherever together. So we kind of help each other out to get those experiences that way.
wow, that's really different. Yeah, we don't. So our social touch is you just form a team however you want with your friends. You think of a really, really cool name. The team I'm in is called the Boring Spuds. I didn't pick it. And we just enter that team. We organize our own uniforms or just shirts. It doesn't have to be specific pants, just wear whatever pants you want. And then we just enter in men's mixed, or if the ladies team want to do that, they enter in the women's division and a draw comes out and we will just play. We'll get graded into specific divisions. If we're like all rep players, we'll probably play in A grade. Or if it's a group of friends or a group of work friends putting in a work team, they'll probably play in C grade, or if it goes to D grade. And that's a weekly thing. So we'll have a competition in the winter, which is just started now. It started early because of the World Cup. And then we'll have a competition that goes through summer. I think our summer's your winter. I think it's flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And for us,
that's
it's not really an option because we don't have the player base of people that know the sport. So we really do need the training to like get new people into it. So this is why the clubs themselves run these trainings, and they may do games against other clubs every now and then to help. But it's to get people to at least know the basics of what to do. So running a purely social league where people just show up isn't really as possible because we don't have enough people that just go, oh yeah, I'm gonna go play in the week, the park on the weekend type of deal. Plus, access to pitches is a problem too. We have that. So
yeah.
most of our clubs are associated with a rugby club, one way or the other. Not all of them, but most of them are, so that they can have access to the facility of training on a pitch. Uh, and again, as I said, most of them have all switched over to this 4G type of stuff because the grass doesn't hold up so well with as much rain and much use as the rugby guys do on it. Tends to get ripped up a bit. But so we
Yeah.
don't have the opportunity really for that kind of social thing. It'd be great to do, and we've tried to do it once or twice throughout the summer. It's just it's hard to get enough people that know what to do already, so that you got a little bit of a flow going in a game. One day we hope to be there, but just we're quite
What do you
many
think?
ways from there.
Have you thought about like what what do you think could help with that? A few people that I've spoke to is like something like at the World Cup, the Women's Open being on the live stream, and something
the
like that
exposure.
would, yeah, just is that something that you think that you need, just a little bit more probably exposure?
We've been trying to get there. I mean, I'll put things in perspective. When I started in 2011, there was 2 teams in Belgium, right? That was the first year for the second team. We're now up to 14 registered teams across Belgium. So I'm going to plug them so they can all listen back to this later. But we got the Celtics, Kituro, Ghent, Beaufort, Citizens, Oudenaarde, Buc, the Buffaloes, La Hulpe, Breganze, Kibubu, Liège, Soigny, and Burnham. And I mean, we've gone from 2011 to now in 2024 with COVID in the way to get to 14 clubs. So there is growth internally. We just need to hit that magical number so we can get more recognized by the state to help with that. But every time there's a Euros and there's any sort of live feed going on, which is basically what we've been able to go to because we can't really travel to all the World Cups. But we plug that across the entire community and make sure it's there on our Instagrams and all that. We have the official Instagrams for all the teams plus Touch Belgium itself, but all these opportunities to kind of get it up there just to get more word on it and spread more from that and the word of mouth. I think it's the big thing for us. And we don't have any sponsorships, so that we can't do a big advertising campaign type deal, right? So
well, I'll put your Instagram links in the description for this video. So if you want to follow that, please do. It actually links completely perfectly. It even puts an Instagram little symbol in there on its own. So thanks, YouTube. That makes it helpful. So Euros, I only came across them last year because of the channel. I started doing some games to local to me, and someone very early, like Belgium was probably, I don't know if it might have been you, Warren. Belgium was one of the first international countries outside of probably Australia and New Zealand that actually commented on one of my videos.
I've done a bunch of comments on them. I'm out there asking stuff all the time. So
but that was when it sort of clicked to me. I was like, whoa, okay, it's being watched on the other side of the world. And I swear, I reckon I'm 99% sure it was definitely Belgium. And it might have been just something, thanks from Belgium or something like that. So did you go 2022 Euros? Was that in Nottingham?
It was, yeah.
You guys go to that one?
So I didn't go to that one, but Warren did coach that one. I didn't go to the one in 2023 either because I tore my ACL, and at that point Warren wasn't the coach. So this is the first time that we're reuniting since 2018, I guess.
How long have you been back? Have you been back running for long?
Yeah, so I hit my 6-month mark that I wanted to hit. So I'm back at trainings and back at games as well. So for the World Cup, I should be A-okay. But the timing was rough.
Yeah. But it's a horrible injury.
Yeah, and we've had 2 ACL tears recently as well in Touch Belgium. So it's it really puts things into perspective, like how much do you give yourself to an amateur sport that you're not being paid for to play, how much time do you give, or do you come back from injury for a sport like that, so it puts a lot of things into perspective, I think. But
yeah, definitely.
But no, I'm just glad to be getting back with the girls this year, and playing with them at the World Cup and being coached by Warren again.
There you go. Yeah. You must be doing something good.
Every now and then it seems like it.
How's the so Warren, you went to Nottingham. Yeah. How's the fields facilities over there? Are they good? They World Cup worthy?
How political do we want to get? No, to be honest, I'm not a big fan of Nottingham. We've been there now 2-3 times as a coach. They have 2 good pitches. The first pitch and the second pitch, the one they put on the live streams, are good. And then beyond that, Tish was there at the one where we played, and that was a few years back. And diving meant people were losing skin on their legs because the pitches were so hard and dry. So I'm hoping they're doing a lot more to improve them for a World Cup. But if they're anything like the last Euros we were there, you're going to have 2 good pitches, and you're going to have a bunch where you take your boots off as soon as you can because the cleats are pushing into your foot, the ground so hard, and you wear running shoes or barefoot on those pit.
Yeah.
You may even have like hockey type shoes with the small grips.
The
It may
good
help
news
out.
is Women's Open, Premier Division, Premier Fields.
Gotta hope. Gotta hope.
I tell you what, we know a lot about hard pitches in Australia because touch football, all our tournaments, apart from the odd one here and there, are played in the summer. I still remember 2019, we had our senior state champs. Now, this is before COVID. We had a bad run in Australia. We had bad bushfires. It was probably, since I've been alive, it's the worst bushfires we've ever seen, to the point where probably for about 2 months, there was just smoke in the air. So when I went to China, there was a lot of smog. It looked worse than that, but it was actually from fires. It wasn't like just pollution. It was fire smoke. So you'd walk outside and just smell burning wood for about 2 months. And we played a tournament.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and we played a tournament in the midst of that, where driving to the tournament was just what used to be nice green bushes was just dead. It was just very eerie. And because we had no rain and we were under pretty heavy water restrictions at the time, to the point where they took all the nozzles off the taps so if you wanted to fill your drink bottles up, you had to go and buy water. The fields were just awful. There was no one's fault. They were just super dry. I was coaching that year, and all my coaching was giving out asthma inhalers or Ventolin as they've subbed off anyone with asthma. It was just a painful tournament for them. So yeah, there was a lot of skin come off that year. And then at the start of 2020, we had floods. So we had all our junior tournaments washed out, and then we played a nationals in March in 2020, when COVID was like, there was whispers of a lockdown, and then they halfway through the tournament, no shaking hands, and then they were sanitizing the balls. Everyone was kind of like, what's going on? And then pretty much the day after it finished, we went into lockdown.
Oof.
Yeah, so we didn't have a good run either. How did COVID sort of affect Belgian numbers? Did it impact numbers? It heavily impacted our social touch over here. Our representative tournaments was still okay, that our numbers were still fine, but socially we lost a lot of players.
We had a big hit there from the players' perspective. Some clubs kept going with some trainings outdoors, individual, fitness sessions where they had to have space around them for quite some time. Others stopped entirely. I think we lost one or two during that time frame. So I think some of them have come back since, but it was quite a long time that we actually had restrictions that, at least on social sports, weren't able to necessarily do things together. I wasn't really as engaged in playing during that time frame because I was so upset that the Euros had been cancelled like a month or two before because of COVID, and that was my team I was ready for. But Tish, you were more involved in playing at that time, right? So you think?
Yeah, I think that I was about to say, I think that the COVID period was probably the period where I was the most involved in touch rugby ever. I think I was so, at that point, we were going through a transition period at the Celts. So we had lost a lot of players because, they were expats, they had moved abroad, or some had kids. And so we lost a ton of players right before COVID. And so we were full in our recruitment phase. And then COVID hit. And I think I was really desperate. Me and Clara, so the touch rep of the club, we were so desperate to keep our players. We did video conference calls with our players on the Mondays for 2 hours, and we'd be analyzing games. And then we would do fitness sessions online as well on the Fridays. And then we would do park sessions on the weekends. And little by little, more and more people started joining. And we actually managed to maintain all of our players throughout that period and recruit even more after COVID. So I think
well done.
It paid off in the end.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever used social media so much in my life. But that really, really helped. I think as long as you have one or two people that are really, really passionate and they want to keep the sport alive, then you can really end up doing quite some good stuff for your club. So I'm just really glad that we managed to pull through that period without losing as many players as the other clubs did. And no, so I mean, at the Celts, I think we're lucky as well that we're an expat club. So we're always going to find at least 1 or 2 players a year that know what touch rugby is, which is insane because in Belgium, no one knows what it is. And so they usually come pass by the Celts. But I think for other French speaking clubs, it's a little bit harder to recruit because most of the time they just end up going to rugby. So it doesn't surprise me that they struggled a bit more during the COVID period.
Yeah, well, so after the COVID period, just coming back to playing, was it different? Like, was there government restrictions on how you could run tournaments? Because it was very different. In Australia, we actually had a limit of 500 people in a mass gathering when we played a senior state champs at the end of 2020, which may sound like a lot to you. But at one of our state champs probably runs about 24 fields at the same time. And that's every half an hour for 3 days. Yeah, those fields are full. So we had 500. Yeah, so we had a little fence off for like 5 fields here, a little fence off for 5 fields here, a little fence off for 5 fields here. You would come in, you'd play 3 games in a row, and then you must leave. And then a new wave of people would come in. So you went away for a tournament, but you were only at the fields for less than 2 hours each day.
Yeah, I don't know if Belgium has the manpower to manage a tournament like that.
Oh, but was there restrictions on like sport in general in Belgium?
Yeah. So there was, and as they started to come back, it was one of those. Okay, you're allowed to have 20 players at a thing. You're allowed to have 30, as long as they're the same people all the time. There was a time frame where you literally had to split up the trainings at the clubs into like pods of people that were allowed to train together. And then when we got to tournaments, it was the same sort of thing. We basically couldn't run tournaments for most of that time at all because the restrictions were so low in numbers. Even with us only having low numbers, it's just we couldn't do it. So it was a good 2 years or so of trouble trying to get anything really going between clubs.
Wow. Well,
the biggest impact of COVID, to be honest, has been on our juniors. This is where we've had the problem. It was like that was such a long time that people didn't get into the sport that are now in their 20s or mid 20s, late 20s. They found another sport. So we haven't had this growth of the new generation coming through, which has always been the thing that has allowed us to maintain our open divisions, because we lost that during those timeframes. And so we're having to work hard to try and get that back so that we can be good for the next few years. But we're going to go through a few more years here of we just don't have the younger players to maintain the teams.
Yeah, right. Did you just have sort of one lockdown of COVID, like one wave of COVID, and then you came back, or did you have a second wave? We had a second wave. So
yeah, I think we had 2 waves as well.
Yeah. Yes. Our second wave, they brought back sport. Let's say the tournament was in December. They brought back sport in October, where you could start training for the December tournament, but you had to be vaccinated. That was the catch. If you weren't vaccinated, you weren't allowed to play. You weren't allowed to go. You weren't even allowed to go out for dinner if you didn't have the vaccine. You weren't allowed to do anything except
we had the passport app that you needed to show when you went anywhere that was social, and they all were required to check at restaurants, everybody. With the same thing at the tournament, we literally, not only did you have to show that, but you had to have your temperature taken. Like people had to line up before they could get in. We tried to get back to one of our Spring into Touch tournaments, and they got 1 week in of 4 weeks, and then had to cancel it again because we were back in lockdown. So we tried it and it just didn't work.
Yeah,
right. Wow.
I think I remember that Spring into Touch where you slowly hear or you see in your group chat somebody saying, "Oh no, I have COVID," and then everybody has to get tested, and then you have to send it to the tournament coordinator, and you're like, "God, one of our players had COVID," and then the whole thing shuts down. Like it really just took one player.
Well, I think at the start, from where we were, if one player was training and had COVID or something, everyone else had to isolate, regardless of what they tested. I think when it first came in, it was quarantine. You've been near someone with COVID. You're 2 weeks or something, and then it gradually got smaller and smaller to just monitor yourself. If you're sick, then just stay home.
Exactly. Yeah, so it was pretty much the same everywhere then.
Mm.
Yeah,
So,
we were in touch with some people in Australia, and I think you guys actually had it slightly easier than us from talking to them because you're able to get back to some sports and things a lot quicker than we were. I know it hit you guys hard, but we were locked down a bit more strict than what you guys had.
yeah,
One of the families that was involved in helping get touch really going in Belgium, the Bannons, Matt, Emily, Sal, James, that they were here for many years and they helped. But we keep in touch with them, and they're based out of Canberra, so. They were letting us know, oh yeah, we're back to playing, and we're going, yeah, we're still all stuck home and are not able to even do anything except for talk over Zoom. So
yeah. Well, Zoom became popular. I wish I invested in Zoom at the
that's
end of
tough.
2019.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now I played a lot of tennis in lockdown
Oh,
because
okay.
you could go out in a group of two,
Mhm.
only with someone in your own region or yeah, someone with the same postcode or something like that. So me and my friend, we would go and play tennis because that was the only sport we could play because you only needed two people.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, righto. So anything anything else you're looking forward to about the World Cup? That's out maybe outside of just on the field or anything like that. It's probably the first bit of negative feedback about Nottingham I've heard, but I guess it's just the backfield. So we're probably not expecting anywhere to have every field in sublime condition. It would be a bit impractical.
The only
Yeah.
other thing to know for your teams is the plan your last day when the party is there. Plan it so that you get there as soon as you can, kind of thing. Because at midnight, if they use the same venue they've used for every Nottingham, for every Euros we've been to, at midnight they're done. So like all these
Yeah.
players that have been on these long fasts and whatever, they don't get to do the party till 4 in the morning. It's England. It is the thing. It's like midnight. They're literally pushing you out the door. You got to go home. It's like, all right, we only got here at 11, or sorry, at 10 because we were busy doing our awards ceremony and our kangaroo courts and stuff like that. And we've been here for 2 hours. Go home. Good luck now. And it's like, all right then. So that's something else
I
to throw in
don't.
there, so your team knows.
I think
You can tell
Australia
the
will be
after
fine.
parties in our priority list.
Australia will be Australia will be fine because all our tournaments end on Sunday, and Sunday's the day that all of our nightclubs and restaurants and clubs they all shut at midnight anyway. But in Australia, unless your team is in the grand final, you're in the grandstand having a
Mm.
couple while watching.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the party starts pretty early in Australia. Well, any other? Oh, have you got any other questions for me or anything like that before I call it a night? Oh, that's 11 o'clock now.
So
That's gone fast.
how long have you been coaching for?
My first head coach was an under 10s team in 2017. I was 25. So probably done about 2 or 3 years of assistant coaching before that. And that under 10s team, I saw them all the way through to under 18s,
Mhm.
and they're now playing under 20s. So
Okay.
when I first started coaching them, it was parents coming up to me, here's his hat, he'll lose it. Or, here's his drink bottle, make sure he drinks water. To then it was, oh, get off your phone. We're training, stop getting on your phone. And then it was, oh, is this your girlfriend? You're bringing her to training. And then it was, oh, you're driving to training. And now it's like I'm seeing them at the pub.
Yeah,
I can't remember you were
nice.
9 and you were playing touch, and it's like now you're on the pokies next. I was seeing you out 1 hour for dinner, and so yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Do you
it's
have
really
to do
cool.
any like coaching courses or anything to qualify as a coach in Australia or
Yeah. So we have they used to be really simple. It was called level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4.
okay.
Level 4 is I don't even know. I think that's still a work in progress. I don't think anyone has that. I think they're trying to figure out how to get that as a thing. Level 1 gets you to coach all pretty much juniors. Level
Mhm.
two, pretty much all of seniors. But to have a World Cup team as a head coach, like an opens team, you need that level 3. So they're called foundation, talent. Oh, what's the third one? Elite. And then level 4 is going to be called a mastery. I don't know why you would need a mastery, but I guess I don't know. It
Wow.
looks good on your resume.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and that's pretty heavily scrutinized. So if you try to register as a coach for a men's 40s team and you're only a level one, when you try and register, that'll flag the system and they'll be like, no, you need to go get your level two.
Ah, okay. Oh, so
So
you
that's
guys are all registered in the system. That's insane.
yeah, it's called the Nest. It is called the Nest. So if I log into my Nest profile, it's got down that I'm a level two coach. It's got down that I'm a level three referee. It's got down my home club because we have rules regarding transferring from one club to another. You need to get clearances, because we're trying not to have it so people are just shifting towards, they want a bit of loyalty. Yeah, all the information about if I've ever like injured myself or anything like that at any tournaments that I've participated in, that's all in the Nest.
Wow.
And it sounds amazing, but it's relatively new and it's glitchy.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's a good concept. So like if I wanted to do my level three coaching course, or if I wanted to get someone to do their level one, you just sign up on that as get an account on the Nest. You could probably do it actually. Like I don't think you need to live in Australia. You could actually get a profile and become an Australian coach. Like
There you go.
yeah, so you just register through that. Everything's on. Well, you still know because there's an online part, and then you have to actually do a face-to-face course.
Oh,
Which is
okay.
about 2 hours. It used to be a full day, but they've cut it down a fair bit because of the online stuff. But yeah, coaching, you do need a lot of people will put themselves down as the manager for a team and just sneakily just coach the team just so they don't have to get a
Oh,
certificate. That's one way around it.
loophole. Yeah.
Yeah, so you might be the head coach of a team, but you don't have an accreditation, so you are the manager
The
on the
manager.
piece of paper.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, sneaky.
That is very sneaky.
So don't have
Okay.
that. Don't have that in Belgium. It's just well,
Now
I
we
guess if you need coaches, I wouldn't be
yeah,
trying to say, oh, if you want to volunteer, sweet, come and spend 140 Australian dollars
yeah.
on a coaching certificate. I don't think that's very fair. You'll never get anyone if you're going to charge
No.
them.
We're kind of down to players that have played before tend up being the coaches a lot of the time because they actually have an understanding, especially at the newer clubs. I mean, most of our national players are a coach at a club because that's the people that are engaged, right? They're either a coach or an assistant coach at those clubs. I mean, in Belgium in total, I looked it up because I do have those numbers. We have 32 coaches, but they're all the first level of fit, and that's it. So we're kind of tied to the FIT system of how they do things, but there's no coach presenters around, so that's also a problem. So I mean, there's nobody in Belgium that's registered to be even a coach presenter at all. So we have to kind of try and find somebody around Europe that we can fly them in, pay for them to come over, and do a course. So every few years we get somebody that swings by. The rest of it is us running our own sessions and helping each other to figure out what to do next, where to go next, and
What would
watching
it be?
your YouTube, because I mean the amount of things that we've learned from just that has been incredible. I mean, we've
No,
been
awesome.
making up names for things we didn't know about, such as the eye defense. We were just calling that high mid, high length because that I'd seen it played on streams by Australia. I was like, okay, we're going to do something like this, and then oh, it's the eye defense. Okay, great. Now we know the real name for it.
So the eye defense is probably what's known universally, sort of in the. We like to use the term big three, which is Australia, New Zealand, and England. Not I mean that respectfully, but that's just the common phrase. In Australia, we sometimes call it the mad dog defense. I can only assume that a mad dog on a leash is the higher middle that's doing all the
Chasing
movement.
across.
It looks like a mad dog, like chasing a postman or something. And we call it a saver middle. We don't actually call it the eye middle anymore. We call it, in a nutshell, we do call it eye defense, but I don't say I'm the eye defender anymore. I'll say I'm the saving middle or the safety middle, and they're either or the pocket, and the other middle is the mad dog, or sometimes we use basketball terminology. We say point guard. They're the point middle and the saver middle.
Okay.
And the link is the link. The link is just do whatever you have to. Yeah, do whatever you have to do. If you have to get up, get up. If you don't, sweet. That makes it easier for everyone. But the eye defense is very popular in mixed.
Yeah.
In
I mean,
Australia.
this is the things we're getting from your videos is all these things that we don't know because we don't really have Australian players in Belgium. Now, unfortunately, it's one of those things. Like I said, we had the one family here for a bit, but and they were instrumental in getting us going with a lot of stuff. But we don't really have that many more that come through, so we don't have that feed. Like I know Thailand has the feed of players that come through, and Malaysia and such. But so we're doing it a lot by analyzing videos, finding whatever sources we can, which is why pretty much every national player has been told to watch videos from your stream because we were trying to coach you for the last 2 years. He's just got it here. Watch this footage and they go, oh, it makes much more sense. Like, yeah, they heard it from another coach, so now it makes sense. I get it.
I've heard a few coaches. A few coaches have messaged me and said, "It's like I've been trying to coach this for months, and now I can finally show them. See, it's true." So I'm just looking. I've got the map of the world up at the moment because I'm like, I think Germany's next to Belgium, and it is, but France is the other side.
Yeah, and we have Luxembourg that's right there as well. And Luxembourg actually plays in our Belgian championships. So because they've only got one club there, they join us. And we've also had in the past the Netherlands, they've had a team that's come to play in our championships and comes to our tournaments. So we try and help grow the region.
We've got Germany, Luxembourg, and France booked in for one of these chats, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, I booked in Luxembourg probably an hour before chatting to you guys. But what I will say is I have a friend who's an elite Australian coach. He actually does a lot of work in France. I don't know whereabouts in France. I assume it would be Paris. Is that how far away is Paris from you?
It's
4-hour drive, 1.5-hour train.
Okay, because I could put you in touch with him because I reckon he lives in France more than he does Australia these days.
What's his name?
Mark Tipple.
Yeah, we know Mark Tipple.
Yeah, he'd be one to get. Other than that, like I've just said to a few people, if you want, you can always send me an email, and if you've got if you want to book in, whether it be myself or another Australian or coach of my level or higher, there's so many people that would happily help you out, but we just don't know that anyone else is out there that would love our help. I think it's not so much. Yeah, it's not so much people from Australia and New Zealand ignoring the rest of the world. It's just we just don't know, and I didn't up until probably a year ago. So I think Sweden might be taking me up on that opportunity. I'm going to link them up with one of my friends, and he's going to do some sort of, we call it satellite coaching. So if you're interested in something like that, I can get either myself or one of my friends from my region because there's a lot of coaches over here that love coaching and would I think they'd really enjoy getting involved with an international team.
I mean, to be honest, we've been pushing for like getting the facilities and everything set up to do that for the last number of years. Like from the budgets that we do get from players, we've managed to buy a nice digital camera. And then this last year, because I've been pushing for about 5 or 6 years, we finally got a drone so that we can get that top-down view as well, so that we can then, have players see also the movement off the ball that they're not doing and the movements with where we're using the pitch, but also so that we can hopefully get some people engaged. I mean, we've had, it was a month and a half ago, we did a joint training with the Women's Open France team, the Belgian team, and Mark Tipple was there. He's been working alongside their head coach as well. So him and I have talked multiple times. He's even come to Belgium and done some sessions here with us. I mean, Tish can speak to that. He got to speak with him a bit more than I did even, I think. So
I was actually supposed to. Yeah. Sorry, you go.
Oh no, but yeah. So I think that's one of the dangers of having a coach from abroad that comes. So Mark did a workshop with us, and I think what was the most useful that he was managed to bring was actually to coach our coaches, and so then the coaches could bring that to their clubs. Because even when he did the workshops with us, and it was just players.
Keep going. You might not answer.
So the players would go to a workshop, but because they've only been through everything once on that one day, they easily forget. And then weeks later, they're just back. It's like an elastic band. They're back to playing the way that they used to, and it's like they've completely forgotten everything that was taught to them. So it needs to be like, if we bring a coach from abroad, we need to find a system that's a little bit more concrete. And so it's like I said, with what Mark gave us was that coaching session with the coaches. That I wasn't there, but Warren, you were there. It took place at
Yeah,
Jamestown. But just to talk about how to grow the sport, how to help your players grow. It's like I said, the Celts, we struggle a lot because we have so many different levels at one single training. We have people who just started playing touch, who've never heard of the sport, and we've had people like me who've played for 18 years at the same training, and we're all training together, and we want everyone to grow. But it's, so it's learning how to manage that. Because at the end of the day, we're not Australian players. We didn't grow up playing, touch coming out of the womb. So it's also learning and knowing the discrepancies of each touch federation and how to help them grow, because every touch federation is going to be completely different. So what Mark did was really, really good with the coaches, but I feel like for the players, there needs to be a more concrete plan to help them grow.
I mean, we've done it in the past with some other visiting coaches as well. I mean, we've had Pete Walters come at least once or twice as well and do stuff with us. Manu was with him, I believe, as well. So like we have reached out whenever we can and get contact with people. It's just, as Tish says, the people don't have that base level. So some of the exercises that get run by those coaches that come to visit, it's only our top players and top coaches that actually know what they're talking about, and the rest are doing it. And you ask them at the end, what was it about? And they go, I don't know, I caught the ball, I put the ball down here, that's what they told me to do. I don't remember anything. And so it's us trying to grow that level within coaching, but then having the people we could reach out to for our coaches to kind of go through like game analysis, so they can see, this is what you're seeing as somebody who's been playing for 25 years. I never saw that, and our coaches can start to see that stuff and then take that as part of their coaching. So I think that shared up vision and help would really grow everybody. I think we could get that.
Yeah, we're trying to. So when I go over to China, I've been wanting to do it here, but we've had terrible weather. When we go over to China next, I'm going over with another Australian coach, and we're actually going to film some content for the YouTube channel, but it's going to be actually us going through that on the field with players. We're going to try and see how that works and see if it's better, and we're going to run through some drills and stuff like that. So hopefully that works.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, rather than just the yellow lines with the terrible arrows all the time.
It gives us a good laugh. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm glad. I reckon half of my subscribers are just there to watch me stuff up my own drawings. I said I should make a compilation of just the bad arrows.
The best ones. Yeah. But I mean, it's super helpful because it points out those lines to people that we don't like. People just don't see generally. And as I said, the things that we're not exposed to, being away from the haven of the sport, right? You're bringing those things to us that we can then take to the clubs. Even when you do like some of the more basic things, those are the videos we can send out to actual players in our clubs. How did your quickie series on a open side versus reverse side quickie, like that's been a huge thing for people to go, oh, I don't have to go the same way every time. It was eye-opening for them, and it's something that's so basic, maybe for Australians, but to people that have never seen the sport before, those intro videos are great for us to distribute. The ones slightly higher up with the strategies are better for our coaches, and then the ones where you really go into analysis of games, that's where our national coaches kind of get the benefit of going, right, I hadn't even seen that, that how did it flow into that score. It wasn't just the 2 touches before, it was they started their drive doing this and they got the 5 extra meters there with the 1 fake pass, and that let them put them on the back foot, etc. So those things are really helpful there.
And then one of the things I've got in the works is the tiny thing about you watch an Australian team, when they make a dump, they'll always go to the side, which looks normal, but the side they go to there's a purpose. Every dump they make, they go to this side for a reason, or this side for a reason. And I'll give it away. Like I didn't understand why. So probably 12 years ago, when I was just sort of just starting men's open, that just sort of came in, and I never noticed it. I was just like, oh yeah, I can make this touch. This is easy. I can chase you over here. But the reason they step to the side is for 2 reasons. One, it's easier because the dummy half's over here. It makes it easier for the dummy half. You're actually running towards them. They don't have to run to you, and it gets you out of the way of the next runner, which will be on this side. Because the dummy half's coming in this way, they're going to pass that way. So you've either got a sweeper coming around, gets you out of the way, or your next runner's coming this way, gets you out of the way, and they can run that line straight up. If you go to the wrong shoulder, they've got to run around you, and everything just sort of slows down. So we always call that the inside shoulder, because 9 times out of 10 you want to get the inside shoulder, and you get a sweeper around and just clears the path for the sweeper.
Yeah, it's wild because when you say it like that, it just sounds so logical, and like even when you're playing, you just want to get out of the way of the player,
And that was how I explained it when I had this group of kids at under 10s. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is when you make a dump, who's responsible for the dummy half being there? Is it you or is it the dummy half? And they all said, oh, it's the dummy half. I said, no, it's your response. If you want a dummy half, you dump the ball in front of a dummy half. And that's how they started dragging a defender over. It's like, oh, I've got to go over here. My dummy half's over here. All of a sudden, the defender's gone with you, and there's just space all of a sudden on the other side.
Yeah. See, I think that's like what we struggle with Belgium by having these player coaches. For example, when I coach, all this stuff makes sense to me. And so when I coach it, I say like, yeah, you just take the dump and then you just get out of the way, But then you have player coaches who are much more theory based, and so they would teach the moves, but in such a fashion that's so theoretical that I think a lot of players take comfort in that, and so they'd be thinking in their head, I take the dump and then I have to run at a 45-degree angle, out 2 steps left, so that and they complicate it so much in their heads. And I think that's what we're struggling with so much in Belgium in general, is that we've become so theory based that we've lost that instinctive touch play, a bit more champagne-y. And so players are just over analyzing, and they're so in their heads now that it blocks their progression, and they can't get further because they're not reading the plays anymore, because they're just thinking about how they should be doing the moves correctly, so that's why we need a real coach, to be able to coach this stuff and coach instinct. That's so hard to coach.
Yeah, and a good example, like something that I'm faced a lot, like when I coach, a couple of times we've been doing a line defense drill where I've gone through, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to shift our body weight this way, we're going to get our exit the touch and stuff like that. And we'll defend something, and some person might not do the exact technically correct body position or something, and another coach standing there watching will be like, you need to get this player to do that. And I'm like, I don't care about that. That's going to happen 2 times in a whole tournament, and he might miss one of them. I'm not worried about making that 9 out of 10. I'm not spending 3 weeks trying to get that as a 10 out of 10 when I've got 4 other parts that need to get up to a 9 out of 10. So I don't focus on getting like one specific thing perfect until at least everything else is good. So I think
what I'm saying, like, players take comfort in the fact that they're trying to get the 10 out of 10, and so they use that as an excuse to not being able to be instinctive on the pitch, because no, when I'm doing my corner, I've got my channel here, and this is the only player that I'm focused on, but then they score at their feet behind them, and you're like, I know you cornered and I know that was your channel, but if you had just, and they're like, no, but you told me to corner and that's the channel and that's it. Like that's what the theory says. And that's the lack of flexibility that we have with a lot of our players. So,
talking about that, talk about running the rooster at a 45-degree angle. It's like, I've been told this is my rooster is run the best when I run it at a 45-degree angle. And it's like, that's great. But what if they're pulling a hard corner? What if they are pulling a hard corner? Then it's not going to really mean anything. What if you just or what if you've got a really, really athletic middle, or what if the defense is automatically just coming at you with a shutdown and stuff? As soon as you run that 45-degree, you're going to get touched on the ankles and stuff like that. It's like, okay, run at a 45-degree if you've got a middle that has really no idea what they're doing as far as shape, run it and smoke him or whatever, but you can't just program yourself to run this way every time, because you're not defending one defender every time.
Yeah, you got to
Exactly.
see the options, right? And I think that's what we're trying to work towards. Is just, and that's just why we're trying to give more opportunities for people to play, because we know like you can train that all you want in a training, but and they're like, oh, this defender's now stepped up or has not cornered. I know what I'm doing. Oh, they are cornering. I know what I'm doing. But you put them in a game and they forget all that. It's like
Mm.
they just need to be told and play and play and play until they I see where the gap is. It's not just I've had to analyze what's happening right now type of thing. And
Yeah, because
that's beautiful.
if I was defending Tish was running a rooster, I would want her to run at a 45-degree angle because
Tell
I've got terrible knees as well. I'm not going to try and compete with anything back on the open. I'm literally just going to go at a 45 with you. And as soon as you get near the line, I'm just going to touch you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if that's all you've been taught, run at a 45-degree, you'll never score on me. But
Yeah.
if you've been taught to then angle back in, you'll get me every time.
Yeah.
We'll keep
So,
that in mind. We'll see if he brings that to his coaching of the China team. We'll watch.
yeah.
I don't. We actually do not run a rooster. The Chinese mixed
There you
open
go.
team, we do not run a rooster because mixed has always got that high middle up, and you've usually got a boy link against a girl link. So every time you try to run a rooster, you're going to run it straight into the link, which is not who you want. So same with a
Right.
sweeper. Those two basic plays, rooster and a sweeper, you can only run if it's girl on girl link, boy on boy link. And because that's not really popular, that doesn't happen often, I actually said, well, we're not going to run those two. We're going to run different plays so we don't have to worry about, oh, they're girls on that side, but let's make sure our girls on that side as well. It's like, nah, we just run like we normally do, and these are our plays.
Cool.
I
Smart.
hope it works.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, they'll be just like, coach didn't let us run a rooster.
Yeah, we'll see.
Curious to see that at the World Cup then.
Well, you've probably seen the video on how to attack if you can't throw a long ball, if you have no one that can throw that long ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have players that can sort of throw the distance, but not the accuracy. So we had to incorporate a way to how we're going to attack and get our wingers to score if we can't throw massive passes. So that was where the
right, Warren.
Well, this is exactly it. I mean, and from the rugby background and playing in South Africa, you kind of grow up, you know how to make a pass, right? And 15 meters is like your warm-up pass, and you're going for longer than that. But in Belgium, that's like the max extent of most of our women's. We have a couple that can make it a bit longer, but to do it mid-play, it's the accuracy is not as easy to hit. But yeah, so that video, for example, was a perfect one of like, okay, look, girls, here's another opportunity of how we should use the people to be able to still get that overlap and hit that 3 versus 2 instead of a 4 versus 3, for example.
Yeah, 100%.
Get that
Basically, basically anything that's got a quick release off the ground. So yeah, I've got one rooster versus chicken, a quick release.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it's three on two. Yeah, rooster. As soon as you catch it, you can run that 45-degree, but as soon as you catch it, you quickly release it to the wrapper. Anything like that, it helps you if you don't have a long pass. Just follow John on Instagram, by the way. You can see that.
Nice.
You probably can't, but I can send you a couple of videos.
Perfect. Yeah, and keep them coming. I mean, honestly, keep whatever you got there. Like even if you're rehashing some of the things with different things, you had a whole video on some of the defensive patterns to try and keep them in the zone. Where you're saying about the links making that one touch. If there's different versions where you kind of go through, this is how the team probably set it up, where it's these guys are on wave 1, these guys are wave 2, these are wave 3, or what are ways that you can beat that. Those kind of discussions that opens up the opportunities for us where we don't really see that. Like the Belgian standard has now become waves. It used to be just pistons with the wings not being involved. It's like we're going through these phases, and a lot of them is trying to pick up what we see from video footage. So anytime you analyze something like that, especially on D, which I know is harder because you don't really get the video footage for D as easy. But when you do have those, they open up eyes. So it's great.
Yeah, defense is hard to find because you've got to go through full games, whereas attack, you can just look at highlights. You don't have defensive highlights. But when you say the waves, I think one of the teams in that video I was the coach for, and it was the one where they send the 4 up on the first.
Yeah.
That was a team that I coach, and I don't know any other coaches that have done the 4. on the first. Everyone does 3 and 3, whereas my theory was it's so easy to beat the one. If you can beat the first touch, you've beaten everything. So make the first touch unbeatable, because beating the second touch, while there's only 2 players there, thinking that far ahead is very difficult to do on the fly. So it's like, all right, let's just flood the first one, bury them there, and they're under then too much stress to worry about what happens next. So
yeah. No, it was good. We brought that to the playbook because something we're going to try and use. So got to throw that in there. There's going to be at least a few things that have come from your videos that were saying, let's give it a shot. Let's see if the girls can handle it. I think the mixed team's doing the same. The threes are doing the same. So as well.
Oh, awesome! No, I'm looking forward to. I'll definitely come and watch a women's open game. But it's funny when our Chinese team played the tournament at Hong Kong. A couple of the boys, the 2 young boys, actually, we've got 2 middles that are uni students. They're really young, and we hadn't practiced a ninja at all. We never went through an Indian incident. And I'm like, they just scored off a ninja. And they come off, I'm like, who taught you that? And they're like, oh, your video. And I was like, oh, so, okay, so I did teach you that. Okay. And I was like, geez, where'd that come from? And they're like, oh, we do it at Social Touch all the time at the uni.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't mean to be the party pooper, but it's getting actually quite late here. I'm probably starting to get a bit tired.
Understood.
No, but what I'll do is I'll send you through a rucking pattern that I recently used. Now it was under 12s, but we figured out a way to do our subbing without needing to run sideways, and it involved getting the wingers involved with the drive actually quite heavily, especially the one on the box side. So that might help. Because I do a bit of coaching with girls as well, and I'm probably going to introduce that next time I coach the girls, which is under 20s at our nationals. So, I'll send you a video of that. You might like it. It might help.
Great, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, I mean, all these things are helping every time. So, really,
yeah. So
kudos and thanks.
Do you run the Touch Belgium's Instagram page?
No, I think Clara is doing it right now, but she's one of the top players on the women's team. So we all communicate back through whatever we get through that as well. We share across, so that's an easy way to get there.
Awesome, righto. I'll send it through to that then. But anyway, sorry for cutting this one. I guess we could call it early. We were still talking. It's gone for like an hour and a half. But no, it's awesome. It's great to learn more about touch footy around the world. So thanks, guys. Anything else? Yeah, thank you. No, it's been really fun.
I'm really interested to hear about other touch federations. I mean, we're so close to the ones that are close to us, but
I haven't got Australia yet. I don't have. I don't know who to ask. That's the thing. I've got all my mates. My mates will be like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And it's like, no one wants to see you. But yeah, I'm interested. Do you know? Do you have any favorite players or anything like that?
Oof.
Do you ever
I don't
watch
remember
YouTube?
Anybody's names.
Okay. Normally, it's Dylan Hennessy.
Yeah, I mean, he's the number one that people talk about because of his past, right? And his ability to hit it.
Yeah, he's the one you had to change when he first come in the late 2000s. Shut down defense was just so popular, and he came in. He was the first one that could throw the long pass fast enough for the winger not to be able to turn and chase. So then they had to change the way you defended the line, which became that hold really late shut, or that channel defense came popular because of Dylan Hennessy. So if anyone's wondering why I believe he's the GOAT, it's because I haven't seen anyone change the game like the way that he did recently with six-a-side. He'd be great to get on the channel, but I was
gonna say
he's a pretty quiet fella. He's he's a respectable guy. Like if you said hello to him at the World Cup, he'd have a chat with you no matter who it is. He's a really, really nice guy, but he's just not one for camera.
Oh. He doesn't have to turn on his video, but it could be really interesting to do with him.
I might get an interview with him on this at the World Cup. We'll see how we
There
go.
we
Good, yeah.
Anyway, guys, thanks very much. It was really nice chatting with you.
Thank you.
I'll catch up with you at the World Cup then.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
definitely.
If anyone's
Good
out there
luck
still
with,
watching,
China.
thank you. Hopefully we go good. It's really exciting. I've never been to a World Cup before either, so
Sick.
yeah.
Okay.
Everyone's on debut.
For all of us.
Perfect.
Yes. All right, guys. I'll
Have a
see
good
you
night.
at Nottingham. Yes. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks. Take it easy.